That's exactly the conversation we're in, is for the survival of humanity. It's like, can we get out of our own way to align to the truth?
Welcome to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life with your host, Glenda Lang.
Hi, this is Linda Lang from thoughtchange.com. We are exploring the mystical side of life once again this week. If you enjoy our conversations, remember to subscribe, share with a friend. We have medicine woman Kerri Hummingbird returning today. We're going to have an inspiring conversation, so stay tuned. Welcome, Kerri.
Thank you so much, Linda. So glad to be here.
It's always a pleasure to have you here. Tell me what's going on in the world of transformation from your perspective.
Well, what's going on in my personal life is I'm integrating deeper and deeper levels of inner medicine because that book I put out a few years ago in the spring on Earth Day, Inner Medicine Becoming One with Mother Earth for the Survival of Humanity. It was a big title. It was when I put it out, I was like, this the title? Dun dun dun. Like it just seems like really? It seems kind of big. But actually now that it's been a couple years and integrating it, I see, oh yes, that's exactly the conversation we're in, is for the survival of humanity. It's like, can we get out of our own way to align to the truth, which requires us to look outside of our filters and our perceptual ways of being up until now that have been conditioned and domesticated by even spirituality and religion. So that we, even those who are spiritual saying, well, I'm not. Yes, you've been domesticated and conditioned to think about things in a certain way based on the path that you followed to open up your spirituality. So indeed, yes. And so we are being invited to get beyond all of the conditioning, right? And get back to what's true. And what's true is going to be the ground beneath our feet. But if we can't land there by getting into our bodies and actually getting on the planet and in our, feet on the ground, energy body all the way in, not like hovering above, kind of like, oh, I'll get in there when I feel like it. But no, like in, down the hips, in the spine, in the body, mm, opening the heart, yeah,
Present.
present with what is, and then questioning everything. And until we can do that, yeah, we're kind of in this conversation, is humanity going to make it or not?
The strangest thing is, it seems like the earth is the one thing we're leaving out of the equation. And that's the very thing we need to connect with.
Exactly. And if you're connected to Mother Earth, what I found in my own journey is by deeply, deeply connecting to Mother Earth, what happens is that it get easier for me to see through the delusions to the truth of things because my heart is speaking to me, my body is speaking to me, my ancestors are speaking to me. We live in these crazy repeating patterns. Crosby, Stills, and Nash had a song in the 60s, right? And it's like we got to stand up and this is madness and we've got to speak out against the madness. This whole song. I was like, that could just be today's song. We're still caught in a loop. We're still caught in a repeating pattern here, you guys. So how are we going to break out of that pattern? We have to stop believing hook, line, and sinker everything we're told. We've got to really come inside, sink our feet into the dirt. We might have to spend days lying on the earth or weeks and just recalibrating and listening to Mother Earth about what's my right action. Being willing to be realigned, being willing to let go of who you think you are, being willing to be wrong. Oh, that's a big one right now. Being willing to be wrong. Being willing to say, oops, I made a huge mistake by not choosing, which in itself actually was a choice. Not choosing something is a choice. And I think this is a big lesson facing a lot of people in the spiritual community right now. Here's the sneaky thing that happens when you don't make a choice, is you say, well, if I don't choose either of these options, then that makes me not responsible for what happens with either of those options. So I have plausible deniability from culpability for whatever happens next if I don't make a choice, which is really a slippery egoic thing if you think about it. It's a way to deflect. And so what we're being invited to do right now is to choose. We are being invited to make choices constantly, this or that, this or that. And each one of those choices creates an alignment within you. It's not so much about taking, let's say, a party's choices and saying, I choose all of this. That's, no, no, no. That's old school. That's like, I'm going to turn my brain off and just go, no. This is about really getting down to the granular level. What do you stand for? And in the process of choosing what do I stand for, you're going to find out who you are. And who you are might not match who you say you are. Who you are may not match who you were told you should be because that would be being good. Who you are might have some primal instinct to it, right? So who you are might be a bit wild and feral, as well as high consciousness and all the things you want to be. But if you don't make choices, then you don't find out who you are. And if you don't know who you are in truth, then neither does anybody else. And this is the path of sovereignty we're in right now, right? To become a sovereign being is to stand fully in your medicine and say, this is who I am. And there's some people giving us a really good example of that right now, right? Like, this is who I am. I destroy everything. That's who I am. I like destroying. I live for destruction. I live for control and domination. I live to be king, and that's who I am. And completely with no compunction about it. Like, that's me. Right?
If we could all accept ourselves that much, right?
That much. And meanwhile, this is kind of like so many times I've caught myself with a bucket full of stones, wanting to hurl them at some of these individuals that I see. And I had to stop and say, wow, this is who they are. They're just telling us exactly who they are. But that's not what I want to see. Because where I stand, I see myself in a totally different way. And so it's such a great opportunity to go inside and ask the question, what part of that that's being exhibited, how dare you be so flagrantly awful, is actually me crying out to me saying, how dare I not express my flagrantly awful because I thought I wouldn't be loved if I did express it. Because I didn't want to ruffle feathers, because I didn't want to make enemies, because I didn't want people to think poorly of me, because I'm upholding a very highly narcissistic version of myself, a mask that I learned was the way to be loved. And I guarantee you, if you're in a spiritual tradition, you have learned the mask you must wear in order to be spiritual and to be applauded. And anything less than that throws you off your pedestal and opens you up to basically being stoned alive by your peers. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at right now, is where are you aligned with your choices? If you say that you are aligned with freedom for all, but yet you cast a vote or don't even vote, and then an administration comes in and takes away liberties from people, no liberties for trans, no liberties for women, no liberties for people of color, stripping out civil rights, then you are actually aligned with your freedom, but not everyone's freedom. That's a really hard thing to admit.
Kerri, do you think this is an important part of humanity's awakening?
Yes, because spirituality and politics are not separate. This is another key misunderstanding that people seem to have on the spiritual path is they say, well, we shouldn't talk about politics in spiritual classrooms. Really? So I guess if you're on a spiritual model where there's a ladder and you're like, ascending out of human consciousness and escaping this reality and going back up to source where we're all one, we're all unified. And I'm going to stay up here and live my whole life as the eagle. And I'm never going to go back down to serpent on the ground because I just can't reconcile that with my consciousness. This is why the medicine wheel is a potent teacher. This is why Native American medicine is needed right now. Because the Native Americans understand that this experience is a medicine wheel. It's a wheel, not a ladder. And when we go on the ladder, the other thing that happens is we get super superior. Like we're morally superior to everybody else. We're spiritually superior to everybody else. And then we have to maintain that mask. And then when we can't, and we get angry and we lash out and we ruffle feathers, people go, you're not spiritual. I'm out of here. This is BS. And I was deluded by my leader and whatever else they say, right? I mean, this has just happened through time. So like, what if we made it into a circle, which is what the medicine people did? It's a circle. It's a medicine wheel. It has 4 quadrants. All of those quadrants are equal. There's the south, the earth, your body, your humanity. Your body lives in its tissues, its material. It lives on land. The land is part of a community. The community is part of a government. The government's part of a society. It's part of a world. Like, it's intrinsically connected to being a human in a body on a planet, on a piece of land. Like, try to escape that. All the land's owned at this point. So, like, try to go someplace where that doesn't exist. Very hard to do. So, you are in it, whether you want to be or not. That's like serpent. Get in your body. Kundalini energy. I'm in a body. I'm on a planet. I'm involved in everything that happens here. That's the first thing people need to admit. And then we go to the West where there's Jaguar, our emotional body. Humans were equipped with emotions for a reason, not to bypass them, but to feel them, to experience emotional energy, to have outrage, to have like righteous rage about this or that. It's conflicting with my sense of frightness, my truth meter. This is incorrect, right? It's like that emotional experience is important. And if you cut off any part of that emotional experience, it's like, oh, I'm above anger, then you can't experience bliss. And so that quadrant, completely related, right? And then we go to the north, the ancestors. Well, obviously that's connected to governments and politics because our ancestors came before us and they all had to be part of a community. They all had to decide together. They all had to get involved. I mean, they were impacted by laws and decisions. So like, that's completely part of it too. And then you get to the east where everyone's like wants to stay in that one quadrant and be with like eagle and fly high with spirit and just be like, yay, I'm out of my body and I'm back up in the ethers. And it's like, well, that part is important so that you can bring that soul knowing back down into serpent. It's all important. Equal quadrants. Not like one better than the other. No, equal. That creates wholeness. So I've been having this debate with my students for like the last year. It's like, no, this is very much a part of it. And you do have to choose. If you don't choose, you still chose.
Everything is a choice, right? Every single thing you do, every single thing you think, every word you use has been a choice.
Exactly. And we can feel all of our feelings, right? The full range of them while making the choice not to act in the middle of the emotional wave. Because why? We have access to our ego self. That gives us a little breath or a pause, like, oh, that's right, I'm an eternal being having an experience of righteous rage. Feel that without acting from it. Feel it. It's there. But then what's happened is that this this trying to only stay in the east quadrant, with this idea of some ladder where you've like become enlightened and you no longer experience anger and rage, uh, that's BS. And that creates a false mask where you're severing off the other three quadrants of your being and denying that they exist. And that creates emotional numbness, spiritual bypassing, and it creates what we're experiencing of like this leader that people have celebrated in the spiritual community, saying things like empathy is a weakness, which, by the way, is the same thing that all of the people involved in the genocide against the Jewish people on Nazi Germany, that was the common thread that all of them believed, that empathy was a weakness and that they cut off empathy in order to do the atrocious things that they did. So it's not very ascended in consciousness to be out of touch with your emotional body.
These are wild times, to be sure. And certainly the spiritual community is not immune to all of this unconscious stuff that is starting to bubble up so that we can become aware, so that we can choose differently, right?
And I know you and I have had many conversations, and this was what was frustrating me around about COVID time, was that I was bringing up conversations that were in the collective around George Floyd and around, because I am married to an African American person. And so I am aware. I watch a lot of African American content. I've been exposed to a lot of African American perspective. And so I'm very aware of it. He's got two children living in the house with us at that time for years. And so I was very aware that there was a different perspective that I was raised with versus what my husband was raised with. And so I was listening with curiosity because I love this man. And maybe that's what it takes. Maybe it takes you actually loving someone and caring about them enough to invest your time to see a different perspective. But this conversation about how this country was formed is not going away. So we're not going to bypass the conflict to go into unity. The only way to unity is through the conflict with listening and diplomacy. And this is what the spiritual community has been like. Like, it felt like this to me. La 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 la. I'm unity consciousness. I'm unity consciousness that doesn't exist. Ah. That is what it has felt like to me. And that has provoked me into feelings of righteous rage because it does exist. And until we rectify that, as well as the Native Americans, until we actually address this issue, it's not complete.
How much of this circumstance do you think is rooted in the energy that created the nation? Like, I'll almost jokingly say it's like the wild, wild west
It
down
is.
there. And yet it's maybe not quite so far from the truth.
And Canada too, because it just expressed in a different way.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing, the Native Americans saw it coming because they have farsightedness. They can see through time, through destiny lines to see what's going to happen. So they already knew that these people were going to come to their shores and it was going to cause a lot of destruction. It was going to bring people to the brink of destruction, basically, of the whole human society
For a purpose.
for a purpose, which is awakening. And so until we decide to open our eyes to different perspectives, we're not going to get it, and until we get it, we can't move on. So we have to get it to move on. That's the thing. That's why it's getting more intense, and that's why it's in your face, and that's why we have these people, doing the Heil Hitler, like, in front of the American flag. It's like so that you guys, everybody, all of us can see the truth underneath the story of America, the truth underneath the story of all colonized countries, which is basically everybody and everyone in the world. We have to be able to see this matrix in order to dismantle it. And in order to see the matrix, we have to admit our collusion with it, our identification with it, and the roles that we play inside of it in order to dismiss it. That doesn't mean being blamed for it. There's a difference. it's actually liberating to look at it and go, oh, wow, I had no idea. So, like, I'll say another example, and this is going to shock people. Yes, it shocked me. Yesterday, my husband was telling me this is a new piece of information that came out for me. It's just an example of the kinds of things that come to the surface. He said, picnic doesn't mean what you think it means. I was like, really? I thought it meant go out to wilderness with some lunch and go have fun with your family. And he's like, no, what it means is go find somebody who's Black and lynch them. But that term, picnic, it's a shortened version of the other terms. I'm pretty sure everybody can figure out what that means. Picnic means go find somebody and torture them. And then that got woven in to the language of white people, like white people, as if that exists. But anyway, in the narrative, it does, to mean a good thing, a family gathering.
That's wild.
This is how insidious it is. So that's why we really can't take anything for granted. Like the level of discernment that's needed at this time to dismantle this system is a level of mastery beyond anything that any of us has practiced up until now. But until we dismantle the system, we are all enslaved by it.
That seems like a huge, huge obstacle. So let's chunk it down a little bit for people and concentrate on discernment, how to tap in and to really find that level of wisdom and truth and honesty within about anything. It doesn't have to be about government, politics.
Just anything. So this is why I teach inner medicine. And inner medicine is based in the 4 agreements, which I think are invaluable for this time. The Toltec wisdom is invaluable to this process. Like literally pick up the copy. The 4 agreements are a navigational tool to move ourselves through this time because we're going to be impeccable with our word, which means we're going to understand the words we're speaking, not assume what they mean, but really check in. Like, does it mean what I think it means when I say this word? Or am I just reinforcing something that was created previously that means the opposite of what I think it means, but now I'm creating that again by saying it?
Or very simply, are the words I'm using what I mean?
Is it what I mean? Exactly. So you might need to discard some sayings, right? And just go back to basics. So there's that. And I think this is why a lot of the healing work that's being done right now is coming through as star language, because star language comes through as vowels and sounds. And so it doesn't have these hooks in it. It's not controlled by the matrix. It's beyond that. So, use sound language. Great. So there's that. And then be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Like the fact that I'm bringing this up, if you feel triggered by it in your body, that's your ancestry talking to you. Okay? Because they did some stuff that they did. Okay? They did some stuff, probably through a great deal of ignorance, but they still did it. And so there's feelings about that. They're going to show up in your body because you have ancestral DNA. So you don't have to take that on. You can say, and I love this. I was listening to Shaman Durek, one of my other friends recently, and he said, no, I do not take that on. You can say that. No, I do not take that on. I'm here to dismantle this system. No, I do not take it personally and do not take it on. My ancestors did is what they did. I'm here to dismantle it, which means I need to be present with it, which means I'm here to heal it. I can't heal it if I'm taking it personally. I can't be objective with it if I'm taking it personally.
You just get triggered.
You just get triggered and then you're angry and you're upset and you're like, you're making me feel guilty and now I feel ashamed and now I feel this and now it's like, your ancestors feel that. I mean, unless you personally did some really hateful stuff to other people, it's probably not you. It's your ancestors who did that stuff. And God bless them. They probably were super ignorant and they were trapped in a matrix that was conditioning them to be that way. And of course, they didn't know. We have to heal it. That's what we're here for. So don't take it personally. And you can say, like Durek said, no, I do not take that on. But I am here to admit I'm here to release it. So Don't make assumptions. Like, don't make assumptions what picnic means. Like, go look up the etymology of it beyond the Webster Dictionary, right? Like, beyond colonizer materials. Make sure you know what words mean. Question what words mean. Like, another one is black magic. Why is it white magic is really good and sparkly and beautiful, but black magic is evil? You know, I mean, it's just things like that. Like, you've got to start questioning what you're told things mean. Like, don't make assumptions. And then do your best. That's the get out of jail free card, you know? Like, you didn't know any better till you knew, and then once you knew, you were gonna do better. That's the whole thing. Once you know better, you do better. You know better, you do better, and that's how we do this together. But we need all of us doing it together. There's no savior coming, you know? That matrix is collapsing. The whole, like, rescuer and perpetrator and victim crap is out the door. So if you're still sitting there waiting for Jesus to come in and save us, please, that's what's gonna cause us to not survive on the planet. Like, we're being invited to step each into our autonomy and our sovereign power by making choices and practicing the 4 agreements. And the 5th agreement, discernment. That one too. Discernment. We have to discern so much right now. That book is great, Don Miguel Ruiz. Just the 5th agreement. Man, it's a powerful book.
We have to discern everything right now.
Everything. And you can't take anything for granted, no assumptions. That's what's so hard. It does take time, and it's exhausting. It is, because there's so much, like, being thrown at us all at the same time. But it's a 9-year too, so we're in completion mode. We're in a massive completion.
You know, maybe in some crazy way, it's perfect that there's so much being thrown at us right now, because if it was just little bites at a time, we wouldn't be making massive strides of transformation.
It's true. And, you know, if anybody else felt this right about November during the election time, I was heading to the jungle on that day. And all of a sudden, I felt this massive shift in the timeline. And all of a sudden, I felt I was on a timeline without even knowing the results. I was on a timeline that I did not feel I chose to be on. I was like, what is this crazy timeline? I do not agree with this. Everything in my body went no. And I've known other people that have said the same thing. And so luckily I had that 10-day, you know, trip to Peru in the jungle with the Shipipo, and I was working with the plants, and it gave me a chance to kind of soften the blow a little bit inside my body and go, okay, at some level, I know that things can't happen without me agreeing to it at some level, right? And so at some level, some aspect of me said yes to this because I'm sovereign. So otherwise it couldn't be. So as I breathe through that and I work with the plants, you know, I can see the wisdom in it now, like you're saying. I can see the wisdom. If we'd gone the other way, we would have been dismantling the system on the backs of Black women because they would have been the first ones attacked. And so now, instead of on the backs of Black women, we're doing it with white men. And so that's kind of where we're looking. And either way, 2 sides of the same coin. We've got to work this out.
Now, Kerri, you are a channel for White Eagle and Buffalo Calf Woman.
Mhm.
So they're working with you and giving you insights about this time. What do they have to say? What are their messages?
Let's see. So let's see what White Eagle says. White Eagles is showing me that we need to look through the rainbow eye. And this was on the cover of the second wave book. And the colors of the rainbow in the eye means all of us together equally as important as the others. And in order to create that rainbow eye, which is the one eye expressed in all these rainbow ways, with equanimity and harmony, we must go through this dismantling of the systems created for separation, for division, for these people are better than those people, for giving away our power to an idea that there's one right way to live. And that's expressed in many, many forms through religions, through governments, through cultures. And so we are given this opportunity now to release identification with those systems and to instead return identification to our unique thumbprint journey. And then he's reminding me that we each have a unique thumbprint. And if you look at your thumb, you'll see that unique thumbprint, and nobody else has that one. And that you could see as a coding of your soul's journey in this lifetime is coded right into your body. And so that journey supersedes all other ideas of who you should be. So, like, nothing else matters outside of that thumbprint journey. That is your journey to discover who you are in truth and to embody it and live it unapologetically and as loud as you wish. And so that's what's coming through from White Eagle. And he's saying that from our perspective, when we express our truth, we automatically ruffle tons of feathers because we're no longer choosing to be conforming with any ideas that were created outside of ourselves, which is automatically going to ruffle feathers because then others who are colluding with those ideas still are going to be like, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that. And then to us it feels like, oh my gosh, like everyone's attacking me, and it doesn't feel good. But from the upper levels, they're celebrating because it's like the orchestra warming up. When it first starts to warm up, everyone's playing their instruments, but they're not really tuning into anybody else but their own instrument, and it sounds like a cacophony. But eventually it comes together and then people play a symphony together. And so they're saying that instruments are warming up and this is fantastic. Okay, so and so I love hearing from White Eagle because this is so positive. Okay, so that's what's happening there. Okay, so now we'll switch over to White Buffalo Calf Woman. And what I'm feeling from White Buffalo Calf Woman is more sadness. There's a lot of grief at the desecration of the feminine, the desecration of female bodies, of the planet herself, and that must be atoned for. And there's this sense of all of my children are loved. There's like this grief for humanity not being able to appreciate each other as all equally divine, equally loved, equally celebrated. And there's been this sort of sickness on the planet that's caused a lot of war and strife. And so there's also some really deep wisdom around how to rectify this situation, which is why we're being invited to come into our own personal journeys and really feel with our own hearts the truth of things. And if we go into our deepest, deepest, deepest hearts, inside there is the answer. And it might be a slightly different answer for every person. And so we've got to trust that heart wisdom coming through our bodies. And we have to tune into our bodies like it's necessary to be fully on the planet, fully down to our toes, fully into our sexual organs, fully into our heart, our body, our will, our guts, like all aspects of ourselves, deep in our hips. We've got to be fully in to take this journey to sovereignty, which means that we might feel really uncomfortable with the density of Earth, because Earth is much more dense than where many of us come from. And we might not want to feel the effects, the unprocessed effects of former lifetimes, because that still has to be processed and felt to move forward. We might not want to feel our ancestors' unprocessed feelings and traumas. That also has to be felt and transmuted. And it doesn't have to be through suffering. So there is this way that we can step into feeling the pain and honoring it as the pathway to wisdom. Instead of arguing so much with the process in Earth School, we can honor the lessons that have happened. We can even honor everything that's happening today as a reminder of places that we left ourselves on the side of the path. Whew. And so when we witness these things that trigger us in the collective and we feel so much audacious rage for it, it is an opportunity to go within and go back down along the path where we left some of ourselves and bring those pieces back, because there could be a piece of us that in another lifetime had exactly the same thing happen with dire outcomes and still not have been integrated into our soul wisdom. You might still have those places ancestrally where things have not been forgiven or released or understood, processed, integrated enough to be resolved. And so that's the opportunity of all the crazy mayhem that we're experiencing this year, is giving us a life review. And each one of us will pick up on like different threads of that, because that's what we need to focus on for our own journey and our own healing and reclaiming the parts of us that got left along the path. And it's hard work. It's not easy work. Mulch and farming is never easy, she says, but it reaps fruits and flowers and gardens. And so it's a worthy task. And that's complete.
Powerful words. Powerful words, Kerri. Thank you for bringing through that message from both White Eagle and White Buffalo.
She always says it's White Buffalo Woman. That's what she told me. But everyone calls her White Buffalo Calf Woman because she brought the calf to the people. And she said, when the calf appears again, I will appear again. And to me, she always says, I'm White Buffalo Woman. And that's really placing the emphasis, I guess, on where we need to place it, which is on our women. You know, the Dalai Lama said the Western women will lead the way. And it's our sacred duty to do it, not shy away, to not be afraid, but to stand up with peace in our hearts, with love, yes, with righteous rage if it's there, whatever's present, to stand up and speak the truth and to bring each other together. You know, we are weaving the web again. We are weaving the sacred hoop of the women. And in order for us to do that, we've got to take accountability for our choices, our words, our actions. We must come together for what we believe in, what we stand for. Otherwise, we drift off into this like disconnected space of spiritual bypass where it's like, oh, whatever happens, happens, you know, this kind of thing. That's not what we're here for. If we were here for that, we wouldn't have bodies, we wouldn't have families. You know, maybe mothers can understand this message better, because we actually have children that we love and care about, that we would die for. And maybe it takes that kind of love to understand what's needed right now spiritually on this planet.
Nice deep breath.
Yeah, it's coming through strong.
And we each have a part to play, not just Western women. We each have a part to play in this
And
transformation.
people are playing that part, is that we're not always seeing it on the news, but people are protesting, people are risking their lives through oppression. Yeah,
And we chose to be here.
we did. Together, all of us, the Rainbow Children, are doing it together. But we each have to do our part.
And it is beautiful. So, you know, it's about respect for each of our journeys and our momentum on our path.
Teenage souls need to rebel and say no. That's the only way to become an adult soul, is to become a teenager first, which means you've got to say no to everything you were told and say, I'm going to find my own way. No. So that's part of what's happening. And then the old souls were kind of there like, this is mass chaos, you know, like, but we came here to anchor and root it for the time when they were willing to listen. Because if you ever met a teenager or a young person, they're never willing to listen until the last minute when they go, okay, tell me, because I'm missing the point. And then they're ready to listen to the elders, you know, which is the other thing that's happening on the planet right now, Linda, is that for many centuries, the focus has been on the baby souls and the young souls, because everything is all about being young and being pretty and being a little girl with your pretty, pleasing, and polite and your little pigtails and keeping yourself as young as possible so that the men want you and all this kind of stuff, which is very, young person mentality. But what we've lost is the wisdom. And you only get wisdom through life experience. And so that's the elders. Those are the mothers. Those are the grandmothers. That is whose wisdom we need right now. But when you're a teenager, you don't want to listen to any of that. So we're getting some of that brick wall stuff happening so that the teenage souls go, oh, yeah, okay, I actually do need my elders. And then we can value all members of the sacred hoop. All the ages can be valued when we get to that point. And I think we're pretty close, I hope.
I hope to. I hope. In the Hindu tradition, we're in Kali Yuga, which is the winter cycle, and we're in the darkest of the dark period before the light once again starts and spring awakens. So here we are.
Here we are, and that's why I think White Buffalo Calf Woman said, we're tilling the soil, preparing for spring. And yes, it's hard work.
It's hard work. Kerri, thank you so much for being my guest and hopefully inspiring our listeners to take personal responsibility on their path and to hone their discernment. And for anyone who would like to know a little bit more about the wisdom that's come through, tell us your 3 books, please.
Yes, the first book is The Second Wave, Transcending the Human Drama. That one came through with White Eagle. The second book was White Buffalo Calf Woman, came through with Love is Fierce, Healing the Mother Wound, which is a really good book for anyone who's got issues with their mom. And the last one is Inner Medicine, Becoming One with Mother Earth for the Survival of Humanity. And I did a couple of books before that, my personal journey, but in terms of like this part of the journey, those are the 3 books.
And for anyone who would like to know more about your work, where can we send them?
KerriHummingbird.com, KERRI, hummingbird.com. And if you go to /inner medicine, all one word, you get to download the free meditation pack, which includes 2 meditations about discernment. One to help you visually in a trance state see discerning whose energy is what, for a situation. And the other one helps you clear it up.
Thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you, Linda. Such a good friend, and I'm always grateful to have conversations with you.
And thank you for listening to this week's edition of Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. You will find all of our conversations on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. Come visit me at thoughtchange.com, pick up your copy of Learning to Listen, and we will see you again next time. Bye for now.